Friends, oftentimes we hear people say things that are absolutely untrue, like the fire service has been unimpeded by progress for hundreds of years, like I don't care what people say about me, or that nice guys finish last. Well, the truth is that the fire service is a bastion of change and innovation, and that we all care about what people say about us. And our keynote speaker today proves that a nice guy, he is a nice guy, and he proves that in the race of life, nice guys do come in first place. Sean DeCrane is our keynote speaker today, and he is one of my closest friends and truly a nice guy. Sean is a gentleman and an outstanding human being. He's a loving husband, father, and then he is a firefighter. I've had the tremendous pleasure of hanging out with him on many occasions, and I've never heard Sean utter a bad word about another firefighter, nor have I ever seen him do anything unkind. Sean wears his heart on his sleeve, and he cares deeply about everyone, especially those we swore to protect. I consider myself among one of the luckiest men in the world to be able to call Sean my friend. It is my distinct honor for me to be allowed today to introduce to you this outstanding gentleman, this quiet hero, and this amazing firefighter. Many of you may not have known the name Sean DeCrane, but many of you know the standards that he has helped to set. Many of you know that our lives and your lives and those we swore to protect are safer because of his tireless efforts. Many of you may not know how hard it is to enact these changes, the endless hours, the thousands of pages of documentation, the incredible hardship one must endure selflessly and without recognition in order to get our codes changed to reflect the reality of the fireground and human behavior. Sean DeCrane has endured those hardships. Sean DeCrane has put in those hours. Sean DeCrane has made a difference in the lives of all Americans. Allow me for a minute to tell you a little bit more about Sean's career. He's a 23-year veteran with the Cleveland Fire Department, currently serving as a battalion chief and chief of training for the Cleveland Fire Training Academy. He's a state of Ohio certified instructor, and he represents the IAFF on the International Code Council. He also served 2009 and 2012 on the International Fire Code Development Committees, and he's the current committee chair for the 2015 edition. He was awarded the 2010 International Code Council Fire Service Award, the International Association of Firefighters Chief Life Safety Section 2013 Fire Service Award, and the 2014 Fire Equipment and Manufacturers Advocate Award. Sean also serves on the National Fire Protection Association's Fire Code Technical Committee. In addition, Sean serves on Underwriters Laboratory Fire Council, Underwriters Laboratory Firefighter Safety Research Institute, and numerous Underwriters Laboratory technical panels, including ventilation studies, the United States Fire Administration's Residential Fire Environment Workshop Project. Sean also sits on a number of technical review panels for the NFPA, Fire Research Foundation, including the Tall Wood Buildings. Sean has presented at numerous conferences in the United States and internationally. He's a contributor to Fire Engineering Magazine, and he co-hosts one of our radio shows, Taming the Fire Environment. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor and unique pleasure to be able to introduce to you today our keynote speaker, Chief Sean DeCrane.
Really not that nice of a guy, Bob. Wow, this is a humbling experience. Good morning. Bob is right. I am from the destination location of the Midwest, Cleveland, Ohio. So if you're looking for something to do this summer, come on by, visit us. I know I got a lot of advice before I came out here, and a lot of people said, don't waste time thanking people. Just get to your message. But part of my message are the people that have been with me, because no one can be on this stage without having a great support team, without having that strong leadership or support group. For that, I have to thank Bobby, of course, for this humble and great honor to be up here. A number of years ago, I was presenting at an IFF conference, and I was following what instructors always do, give time, interact with the audience. And Bobby came up and said, "Brother, just deliver your message. Just deliver your message." And that was a great vote of confidence. And he probably regrets it at times, but he really set me on a career path. And also Jack Murphy, who I owe a great deal of debt to because he's been keeping pushing me and keep telling me to get the message out. I also want to thank my fire chief in Cleveland, Patrick Kelly, and Assistant Chiefs Tim O'Toole and Frank Shantos, because they've supported my activity at the national level. They've seen the importance of bringing this research back home and pushing for some of the reforms that we need within our own division. Of course, you see the list of my staff up on the board. They carry the workman load. They're the yeomans. Without them, there's no way I could be active. There's no way we could accomplish nearly half the things that we do. I have to thank General President of the IFF, Harold Schaeferger, and our Treasurer, Tommy Miller. Tommy's right here from Indianapolis, or if you watch NCAA, as Sir Charles would say, the Indiana. They've supported me very early, and when Harold gives a go, things start to happen. So I thank them very much. And also Patrick Morrison, Lori Moore Merrill, and Jim Brinkley from the IFF. 3 true champions of the fire service. Many people in this room will not realize or do not realize how much we owe them for the improvements in the fire service. Whether you are career, volunteer, or part-time, because of the passion and the work of 3 individuals, we are much better off in our work environment. Of course, I have to thank Keith Williams, Chris Hasbrook, and Steve Kerber from UL. Recently, they've given me so many opportunities to be involved at the national and international level with special events involving the fire service. It's been an incredible, rewarding experience, and it's one that we're going to keep moving. And on the screen, you also see listed my fellow members from the UL Firefighter Safety Research Institute's Advisory Board. These men, with the assistance of Robin Zavodik and Julie Zipperer from UL, are some of the leading minds, not only in our nation, but across the world. And they have dedicated so much of their time, their knowledge, to improving our work environment. The information that's coming from the research at Underwriters and shaped into the educational materials by Julie is tremendous, and it's changing the thought processes of the fire service. Before UL invested in the fire service, we were reliant on textbooks. And institutional knowledge, but now we have data that's based on solid research, data that's based on solid science. Along with the great Dan Mandrzykowski from NIST, we are developing better educated and better informed firefighters and fire officers, which will lead to informed decisions on the fire ground. We need to study this research and learn from it. Recently, I listened to a good friend of mine, Lionel Carruthers from Winnipeg, describe an incident where they lost 2 firefighters, and Lionel was burned tremendously and suffered months of rehab. And I couldn't help but sit there and think, if this research had been developed sooner, if this educational material had been developed sooner and rolled out, that most likely never would have happened. Of course, I left the most important and most difficult for last. See, no one has sacrificed more to allow me to participate than my own family. My wife and daughters have allowed me to be involved in research and projects. Caitlin, who's here today, Allie, who's at The Ohio State University, couldn't miss schoolwork. OH! All right, brothers and sisters. They have faced many obstacles in their young lives, with some of them life-altering. But they have overcome these obstacles and are succeeding in ways that can only dream possible. They are bright. They are beautiful. They are not available to date anybody in this room. And they will succeed whatever they choose to do in their future. I'm incredibly proud of them and greatly appreciate our relationship. And they're developing into tremendous young women and will make their mark on our world. But I also so much to my wife, Beth. You see, I have a very bad business model. I tend to volunteer for everything. Denise Smith got me on another project yesterday. And I can tell you, volunteer work doesn't really pay. Code committee work doesn't pay. Attending code hearings doesn't pay unless you're a consultant. And I always seem to tell people not to worry about compensation when it comes to classes because it's about the message, delivering the message. So a couple of years ago, I started questioning whether we could afford me being involved, and maybe it was time to take a step back and be in town more often. Also, maybe it was time to quit spending money on travel and all the expenses that went with being involved in these efforts. But my wife, Beth, put a quick end to that. She said, "We'll get by. You're making a difference, and you need to keep making this impact." She said, "You're not quitting." Now, I don't know if she just wanted me out of the house more often, which is a distinct possibility, or actually believed what she was telling me. But it's incredibly humbling to have someone who believes in what you're doing. We've been married for 22 years, almost 23. I do remember the date, June 26th. And she's my best friend and my life's companion, and she surprised me last night by showing up. So. She's a school teacher. I told her I'd give a shout out to the kids who are watching online back in the classroom. So do your homework before Mrs. DeCrane gets back. Before I start today, really into my message, because they want me to deliver a message up here, not just a comedy routine, I want to ask a question, much like Steve did yesterday. How many in this audience believe they're a well-rounded, well-balanced, good firefighter? I mean, all of your hands should be going up, right? That's why you're here, right? You're here to learn. You're here to educate. You're here to train to become a well-rounded firefighter. It's not a trick question. I didn't ask you if you're an aggressive firefighter, because then I know every hand would go up. I'm just curious in who here believes that they're a well-rounded firefighter. Okay, next question. Let me define, what is a well-rounded firefighter? Is it that firefighter that can work on an engine, can work on a truck, can work on a squad? Is it the firefighter who can throw water, throw a ladder, cook a great roast, and throw a hell of a horseshoe? Or does it mean something more? You know, I forgot to ask Rob permission to use Bobby's special spot here. So you're seeing some of the inner workings. There's a little note right here, Bobby's special spot. So I had to ask permission, but see, every one of us in the fire service has a base, somewhere where we came from, somewhere who influenced our careers and established our career path. My journey began in the fire service January 7th, 1991, when I was hired by the Cleveland Division of Fire, fulfilling a lifelong dream of becoming a Cleveland firefighter. Growing up watching my Uncle Jimmy as a firefighter deeply influenced me, as did losing my Uncle Joe in a line-of-duty death in Cleveland. Something I always wanted to do. What a treat to achieve a lifelong dream. After graduating from the Cleveland Fire Academy, I was assigned to Ladder 4 on the Cleveland's near west side, right next to my arch-rival high school. I was immediately intimidated by Lieutenant Henry Grip. He was about this tall, 5 feet tall, walked around with cut-off sleeves, and every morning he'd work out. About 9:30 in the morning, he'd walk out with his chest out, and he goes, "DeCrane, come over here." "Yes, sir. Yes, sir." Run over to him. "Go get me," and he'd name a tool. And as I'm walking away, inevitably he would say, "I'd better hear only one compartment door." Right. So I was intimidated for months by him. But thankfully, I was blessed with the greatest senior man ever, Tommy McCarthy. When I found out I was going to Ladder 4, people started telling me about the legend of Tommy McCarthy. You know, using an axe to climb up an exterior wall to reach someone on the second floor, climbing up downspouts. And he never wore a mask. He was a legend within our job, highly decorated. But I've never met a more generous man, both with his time and with his knowledge. Each morning, he would walk me out and walk me through the apparatus and all the tools. He even checked the clevis pins every week. He cared for that truck as if it was his child. It was an extension of him. But as the legend becomes reality, my second shift, I had my first work. You're all excited? West 41st and Bailey. Every time I drive by it, I think about it. You know, I'm really excited. I'm getting out there. You're hyperventilating. Lieutenant Higgs goes, "DeCrane, go get a straight ladder, get up on that porch, and start opening up the front of the roof or front of the house." So I started heading up to, I started heading back to get the ladder, and I look over my shoulder, and there's the old man going up the downspout. I'm like, "Tommy." But being the generous man that he is, and that cackle of his, he started laughing. "Come here, kid, and this is what I want you to do." And he started me working. I was so fortunate to have the initial solid base that Tommy and also Skip McNamara gave me. They made sure I had a work ethic, and they made sure I had the love of the job. They set my career path as they passed on their knowledge and passion for their job. I ended up at Rescue Squad 1, the greatest assignment ever. I'm telling a story here. We trained, we were busy, we were working in the middle of a busy neighborhood, and we were very, very close. We experienced everything every day, something new every day. There were no all nights in. We were those guys, right? The ones we see, the ones who feel cocky, they feel good about who they are. We looked forward to the red phone ring. When that red phone didn't ring, you went over there and did your little rituals, jiggle the handle a little bit, trying to get it to ring. We wanted to go work. We wanted to go to those jobs. When we were coming back from work, we'd play Johnny Cash and Burning Ring of Fire over the loudspeaker as we're going back on the squad. Pretty insensitive now when we look at it. Yeah, actually, short story. I have a little bit of time. When I found out I was getting promoted to battalion chief, my wife and I were down in Florida, and we were at a piano bar. And I got the call, and shortly afterwards, this guy goes, I got the strangest request. This wife says her husband just got promoted to fire chief. He wants to hear Burning Ring of Fire. And all of a sudden, some guy across goes, way to go, brother! It was a South Carolina firefighter, so, he got it. But, we were a tight crew, and we were probably doing things that would get us in trouble today. Not probably, but yes. There's a whole nother story I could tell you, but I can't up here, especially if the city administration's watching. But I was that guy. I was high-fiving, telling everyone that when the squad shows up, the fire goes out. Of course, we didn't have to pick up line. We were just off to the next fire. There's an awful lot of hose line right around in the neighborhoods of Cleveland. But then I was promoted to lieutenant and sent to Rescue Squad 3. I was given a young crew, and we started developing a camaraderie that we still have to this day. Again, we were aggressive, right? We trained. We became a very close unit. But with leadership comes thoughts and sometimes doubts. I was now responsible for other lives. Somehow that carefree, aggressive attitude as a firefighter became a bit more measured as I assessed the risks I was asking my crew to take. And I remember on a mutual aid, I remember pulling these guys together. It was a really dicey situation, and they asked, go up there. I put them together in huddle. I said, listen, boys, listen for my voice. Stay close. When I say get out, it's time to get out. And we went in there, we did our job. And we went back and we high-fived and we were good. So around this time, I became more involved in our local. Again, causing me to think a little bit about the bigger picture and about the safety of our members. We all sustained the bumps, the bruises, the knee surgeries, the burns that went with being an aggressive firefighter. But now I was reading about more and more about situations that occurred that it wasn't just a bump or a bruise, but rather a father or mother, a son or daughter, a brother or sister who weren't going home. Suddenly, I was questioning some of my decisions. On Father's Day 2001, 3 FDNY firefighters lost their lives in a backdraft explosion in a hardware store fire. New York's pretty close to us. A number of us from Cleveland flew up for the funerals. At one point, we were walking down the street, and we ran into an FDNY firefighter. I mean, there are tens of thousands of firefighters all over the place, but we ran into this FDNY firefighter, and he kind of had this lost look on his face. And he was kind of just staring. He had this blank stare, and he was shaking his head. So naturally, I walked up and said, hey, brother, you okay? And he looked at me, and he said, what are we doing wrong? Why are we killing our people? And I didn't have an answer for him. And you have to remember, this is prior to 9/11. This was just the normal everyday duties and normal everyday actions of FDNY. And he says, what are we doing wrong? Sadly, I still don't have an answer for him, especially if he asked me why. Why are we killing people? Killing our own. So I became secretary of our local and got even more involved in the research of firefighter fatalities and injuries, because we were using this information as we prepared for negotiations with the city. I was also trying to advance my career by taking promotional tests and reading material, including a book by Vinnie Dunn that talked about how firefighters are killed in the line of duty. Again, there were no secrets in that book. We were not inventing new ways to kill our members. It was the same old script. I was attending funerals. It seemed like so many funerals, so many little kids saluting their parent for the last time. So many firefighters sharing a beer afterwards going, damn, that sucks. What went wrong? What happened? But then came a big change. In 2005, right there, a friend of mine that I played rugby with, Steve Tyler, not the musician Steve Tyler, asked me to attend a trade association meeting. He said, we want to pick the brain of a firefighter about education. Everybody else was busy, so he came over and started talking to me. I said, well, you know, Steve, I'm in negotiations. I'm kind of busy. I don't know if I have time. He said, well, the meeting's in Key West. And I was like, ooh, the schedule's opening up a little bit here. Yeah, you know, when did you say it? He goes, oh, yeah, don't worry. We'll cover your expenses. I said, my expenses? Are you going to cover my beer tab? Which he knew would probably be more than the airfare. And with a little sigh, he was like, yeah, I'll cover your beer tab. And so I was in. So I flew down to Key West to educate people and attended this meeting. I went to this meeting with their education committee. But during a break, a crazy thing happened. These code geeks got a hold of me. These engineers got a hold of me. And they asked me my thoughts on codes. And I had never served a day in fire prevention. You know, I was a squad guy. Come on, I showed up, the fire just went out. It was magic. So I said, well, they've got to be getting tougher, right? They responded by educating me on some of the actions that were happening in the codes and some of the protections that were being taken away out of these buildings and how it impacted firefighter safety. This is our work environment, right? So then they dared me to attend a code hearing and that there was one coming up in Cincinnati. Now, no offense to my Southern Ohio brothers and sisters here. Anybody from Southern Ohio? Well, Ohio is very much like plumbing. Cleveland's up here, Cincinnati's down here. I'm kidding. It's not football season. We're still all Buckeyes. I was trying to come up with an excuse not to go. So I went anyway. What I found at this code hearing is I found a lot of well-intended individuals who were at the microphone speaking for the fire service about what we wanted, what our goals were, what our important aspects were. And it was very important. It was very clear to me that they had never fought a fire. They never crawled down a dark hallway hoping that your bell didn't go off. Yet these individuals were working on the codes that were going to establish our work environment. It was an awakening moment. How do we improve our work environment if we are not involved in how it is designed, built, and maintained? Then on August 13, 2006, Lieutenant Arnie Wolf was killed in a house fire with lightweight construction in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The NIOSH report came back and said we should change the codes to protect this type of construction. What an amazing concept. Do something proactive after a firefighter fatality. Take a recommendation and do something with it to prevent this occurrence again. What if firefighters became active in the codes? What if we did pass code language that required the protection in 1- and 2-family homes? Would this improve the safety of our members in their operations in our work environment? Absolutely. So we did get involved. Went to the IFF, we got involved, we got in the code process, and we got shut down by the home builders, but thanks to the work of Steve Kerber at UL, now we had data. We had data on the performance of these floors, and we went back to the code process, and we got this code change into the International Residential Code. As of 2012, they have to protect lightweight construction. But the problem is, most firefighters are not even aware it exists, that requirement is in the code. And in many jurisdictions, the home builders went in and convinced local politicians to remove this requirement from their local code. A code requirement written in blood has been removed in many areas of our country, and the local fire service wasn't even aware of it. Imagine what a little activism, imagine what you can do to protect your work environment, to protect yourself, to protect your coworkers. When each of us is hired, we take an oath. That oath is to protect the citizens of the cities we serve. Usually the oath, or at least the department's mission statement, directs us to protect our citizens through suppression, prevention, and education. Sometime back, I was invited to participate in another group. I told you I have a bad business model because this group didn't even have a name yet. It was a group of individuals that were meeting at USFA to talk. So I went. We spent time discussing fire safety, preventing fires, and making sure occupants could effect egress in the event of a fire. It dawned on me that if the occupants were outside and everyone's accounted for, especially with today's construction practices, it would translate to a safer environment for our members. Vision 2020 was born, and I found another piece of the puzzle. For a period of time, I was on Rescue Squad 3, and I was known as the pediatric Grim Reaper. You know, we have a sick sense of humor in the fire service. We went through a stretch where it seemed like at least once a week on my shift, we had a pediatric fatality, whether it was through fire, trauma, or medical. Some of these kids, like Malik, we still remember their names. I had young kids at the time, and I was watching this, and it was tragic. All these kids losing their lives. I asked, could we change this? What could we do to change this? What if we made more school visits? What if we spent a little bit more time educating children about the dangers of fire, about the hazards of climbing up on windowsills, especially in high-rise apartments, about the dangers of playing around stoves? Maybe this is another piece. Now I'm starting to see the well-rounded firefighter. We are striving to be solid and dedicated to suppression efforts and honing our skill set as evidenced by all of you here. It stuns me that 6,000 people were at hot classes. This is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I am not indicating it is not. It is very important. But we can be the best firefighter? No, we are the best firefighters in the world. But the fact is, we're responding after the fact. We're responding after the incident has already ignited, has already initiated. There are times there is no way we will get there in time. Regardless of how fast or how proficient you can advance that hose line, regardless of how proficient you are in VEIS or throwing ladders or taking a beating, we will not be there in time. We're only addressing a third of the issues. If we were baseball players, we'd be hitting about 300, which will make you a hell of a lot of money in baseball. But imagine if you were a baseball player hitting 600. Imagine how much money you could make then. Well, forget the money. Imagine the impact that you could have on your local community. Imagine a firefighter who studies his craft, who takes classes, reviews the research to understand modern tactics, and then goes out and trains on his or her skill set to make sure that they can operate when the chips are down and people are at risk. This is a firefighter we all want to be, right? That's why we pay to be here. This is the firefighter we want to be, and this is the firefighter that our communities demand. But if we want to be a well-rounded firefighter, we look for that firefighter to also get involved in his or her community. This firefighter is going to monitor the code process, especially with the online ICC voting now. It's easier than ever. You don't even have to get out of a recliner to make an impact. You can ensure that your work environment is being protected properly. This firefighter is also going to participate in community risk reduction projects, like walking the neighborhood, installing smoke alarms, doing home safety visits. If you're not aware of this project, it's here. Jim Crawford from Vision 2020 and Community Risk Reduction has a booth out there on the floor. When you're done looking at the pretty fire truck, just talk to Jim. Imagine the value that you provide to your community through this effort. Imagine the political clout you gain by interacting with the citizens in their homes. Because I'm going to tell you something. A politician can't go and knock on someone's door and be invited into someone's home. People don't invite politicians into their home. But you know who they do invite into their homes? You, the firefighters. They'll invite a firefighter into their home and start to talk to them. Now imagine how this interaction can increase your political clout locally. Imagine how it could help you on local issues or helping local candidates who support you, who support your agenda. I know in aspects in Cleveland it has helped us tremendously. Pissed the mayor off, but it helped us tremendously. Then imagine this firefighter visiting local schools and talking to kids about fire safety and many other fire safety tips, possibly reducing those responses that tear our hearts out. When we have to pull a dead kid out of a fire, or we have to treat them for a scald injury. This, to me, is a well-rounded firefighter. The firefighter who provides value to themselves, value to their department, and value to their community. This is what we are here to do. Provide value to our communities. That's what we're sworn to do. Protect them, many times from themselves, but also from other times from consequences of unforeseen emergencies. So I want to leave you with the challenge today. I want you to attend all the tactics classes that you can find. Keep working on being the absolute best suppression firefighter you can be. Study the research from UL and this and start to understand the science of fire so you start to understand your work environment. We owe it to those who have come before us. We owe it to those who have lost their lives to discuss these events, to learn from these events. It's not disrespectful to discuss it. It's disrespectful to allow someone else to die the exact same way because we didn't want to find out why. What went wrong and why. But I also want you to take a few minutes and stop and talk to Jim Crawford about getting involved in your community, making your community safer for the citizens that you protect. Pop into a Becky White class about public education and learn how you can be an extremely powerful advocate to the young kids in your community who look up to you with awe. They look up to you with awe. Just think of the parades and how those kids look at you. Then I want you to take this sampling and go home and do something with it. I want you to work on all facets of your game: suppression, self-education, training, community risk reduction, code involvement, and public education. I want you to be the most valuable resource your community has. Whenever they turn around, there you are as a firefighter to assist and to educate. If you do this, you will truly be a well-rounded firefighter. You will truly become a community treasure, impacting lives far beyond a fire vet. And at the end of the day, when you look in the mirror, you will know you were doing everything you can to protect those who you took the oath to protect to the best of your ability. We need well-rounded, well-trained firefighters if we expect to save lives and protect property when the alarm sounds. We always have, and we always will. A high level of competence in fire suppression is critical. Don't ever understate its importance, and don't ever underestimate the risk that's associated with it. But a truly well-rounded firefighter understands clearly that they save lives and property in other critical ways as well. A well-rounded firefighter uses codes and built-in protection to create a safer environment for their communities. A well-rounded firefighter educates the public and arms them with knowledge and skills to prevent bad things from happening to them and their families. A well-rounded firefighter is proud of the life-saving services they provide through fire-based EMS, technical rescue, hazardous materials, disaster response, and every other element of our all-risk response model. You light them, we fight them can no longer be our mantra to the future because we do a disservice to the other services that we provide. Well-rounded firefighters are committed to protecting the public in every way they can. With that said, my final challenge to you today is this. No matter how capable or competent you think you are as a firefighter, work to become better. Work to become even more well-rounded throughout your careers, and don't ever, ever, ever become complacent. Because, brothers and sisters, complacency kills. God bless you. Thank you. Stay safe.